Today I'm covering my graphics in Season 3 of Warzone 2.0. I noticed after the Season 3 update, my graphic settings reset. I had to go through and change them. I don't know if there's anybody who dealt with that. Now they don't like their settings. Regardless, my settings are made to give me the best possible FPS I can run and give me the most visual input so I can see people easier. I go through it all in this video. This is a complete breakdown. I don't just skim through and say, oh, here you go, copy this. I talk about each and every setting and why I use those settings. So if you enjoy these types of videos, if you're new to the channel, enjoy the content, man, hit that sub button, press that like button. Let's get right into it. All right, here are my new graphic settings. I play on full screen borderless. It's gonna be my monitor and then your GPU. I do run a single PC stream setup, so I record, stream, and play off of one computer. And I still push like anywhere in game from 120 to like 140 frames, I would say, at 1440p. So I'm super stoked with my build and my settings for that. Shader optimization. If you ever have a problem where you feel like you are getting frame loss, like everything's kind of stuttering, you can restart shader optimization and it just gives your computer a fresh start with all your shaders, because sometimes they'll download but they won't download properly. So that's a pro tip for you. If you think you're losing a few frames, just restart your shaders. On quality, this really all varies on your GPU, but I don't play like maxed out quality, even though I do have like a very nice graphics card, just because I do everything on this computer. I kind of play low, but again, I'm not really in it for the looks. I'm in it for the dub. Like the only thing I want looks wise are for people to stand out more. And for maximum FPS. So custom preset, I play at 1440 with 100 render resolution. Upscaling I have off. I don't know, like I know people run that fidelity FCAS. I keep it off on upscaling and sharpening. It looks fine without it. I play plenty fine without it. Anti-aliasing on the other hand, I have on Filmic SMAA T2X. And I have that, like that's the bigger one of the two. You can do SMAA T2X, but with the Filmic, I feel like it gives you more sharpening, and I do like the sharper look of a game, but whenever you turn on the Fidelity FX CAS, it's definitely too sharp, like it's too much. Anti-aliasing quality, I leave that on normal. Video memory scales at 90. Texture resolution at normal. Texture filter anisotropic is going to be at high. Nearby level of detail high. High on distant level of detail. Clutter draw distance is going to be short. Particle quality is low. This is really just like you see in the photo explosions. The amount of detail you see on, like, whenever you see a spark in the air, is it going to be a little pixelated or is it going to be finite super detail? That is very unimportant. That is a luxury, not a need. So we keep that on low. The particle quality level, I keep that on high, but the particle quality itself is on low. So that means it'll render in low, but it'll load each particle itself. So I do like having at least some particle. The reason I say that, if a grenade goes off in the distance, and let's say I don't see the whole thing, if I do have my quality level on high, it'll render all the little chunks flying. I'll catch those, but they don't necessarily need to render in at the highest quality. Bullet impacts are pointless as all get out. Off, man. I keep those off. The only time I ever turn on bullet impacts are when I'm making anti-recoil videos, teaching people how to have better aim so I can show you spray patterns. Persistent damage layers, I leave that on. Shader quality, I keep that at medium. Tessellations, it's off. On-demand texture streaming, I do have this on. Allocated texture cache size is at 32. Enable download limits off. Streaming quality is at normal. Volumetric quality is at low. Deferred physics quality, I keep that off. Water quality is at default. There's all kinds of like different water settings. I could care less about detail with the water, brother. You never really mess around with the water, I feel like, when you're playing Ashika anyways. Shadow map resolutions on very low. You gotta have some shadow, so like you see it on the photo from the left to the right here. My camera's kind of blocking it, but you're not really looking at the camera. You're kind of looking at just this top bar right here. So when it's set to low, you have the same shadow. It's not as dark and it's not as defined. You see over here on the right, you have a really defined line. It's kind of darker, just, you know, but nonetheless, you want shadows more or less for people shadows. See someone running by, you can catch their shadow. But if it's blurry or sharp, again, that's a luxury, not a need. We just want shadows in general. Screen space shadows, I have that turned off. Spot shadow quality, I've set to medium. Spot cache is on low. Particle quality, I have that on low. Again, if you look at these two photos, right here on the particle lighting, the difference here is really not that deep. If anything, the photo on the right looks harder to see. That looks like in general, everything's more dark. Trying to add for like realism lighting, that would make that darker compared to over here, it's lighter. We're gonna keep that on low. Again, I'm trying to see people easier, not in it for the ambient. Ambient occlusion, we got that set to off. It's really just finite detail, the little details. It says right here, it says add soft shadows intersecting with each other creating depth. Could care less, not worried about that. That's set to off. Screen space reflections, I'm gonna have that set to off. Static reflection qualities on low. Weather grid volumes is on low. NVIDIA reflex low latency, I don't know why it was just set to on. I usually have on plus boost. Gotta run that plus boost. And then depth of field and motion blur, weapon motion blur, all of that's off. There was a thing in the last COD on Rebirth Island, people were saying, oh, if you had weapon motion blur to your guns, you'll get more FPS. And the truth of the matter is, you weren't getting a higher frame count because all these videos people were making, the frames never actually went up. I mean, if they did, it was like 2 or 3, nothing crazy. But the gun itself was blurry, so it made the game look more smooth because you gotta think, the guns are very detailed. You have a charm on the side, you have your optics, lasers. So whenever you're moving that and you're not really getting the best frames and it's not blurry, you're gonna notice the chop. But if you go to move your gun and it's all one big blur, it's gonna move right by, thus giving you a smoother feel, but it's not really smoother. We leave it off. And plus, you don't want any blur on that kind of stuff. It helps with centering. You want everything to be nice and sharp. The depth of field, world motion blur, weapon motion blur, chalk it. You do not want to leave those on. Film grain I have off. Now this was actually proven, I believe Jade Guide proved it. On this, if you put it to 0.01, I think I can type that in. If you're on PC, you can type it. Let's see, 0.01. He did that forever. I had mine on 0. We'll try it at 1, but apparently that did give an increase. Like that was proven to give an increase. So I'll try that. I'm actually gonna apply that. We'll see how that goes. If that doesn't do anything, just put it to 0. And then on view, if you're not running 120, if you're running 105, 110, you are sorely mistaken. 120 gives you the least amount of, I shouldn't have just said less, the least amount of visual recoil. What I mean by that is your gun's not gonna bounce up as much when you're shooting. If this is the barrel of your gun, your optic, your sight, if you're at 60 FOV, I mean, you're gonna be, it looks crazy. If you have it set to 120 though, and you shoot, instead of it being all out here, it's gonna be more condensed because the gun's smaller. So it'll look like this, which is way easier to manage because you're not overcompensating for a bigger visual recoil push. So 120, but the key here is to put it at affected. So you have independent and affected. Independent's gonna be the photo on the right. Photos don't matter. Independent means you're at 120 ADS and it's back to default. Affected, you aim down sight and it's still zoomed out, so it makes everything smaller. You really want to leave that at affected. If you're playing 120 independent, you're still not really getting all your benefit. You can see more, but you'll still have bad recoil. But if you're playing at 120 affected, 100% you're getting the full gist of everything because you can actually control your recoil. You will see more and you will control your guns more, less recoil visually. On that topic, weapon field of view, you got narrow, default, and wide. Okay, it says right here at the bottom, narrow, the weapon looks bigger, default looks as intended, the weapon looks smaller on wide. The benefit of having your weapon look smaller, you can see more, you can see it. It's like playing, I mean, you notice pros in Counter-Strike, they'll like move their guns over as far as they can, or the left side, and they'll move them down, and they adjust all these angles just so you can see more of your screen. And that's really what we're trying to do. I mean, as a competitive Warzone player, somebody who's trying to go in, absolutely put in work. We want to be able to see as much of the screen as we can. So 120 FOV helps with that. Affected's going to help with that. And setting your weapon field of view to wide is going to help with that. As for a third person field of view, I had that at 80. I don't really play third person, but put it at 90. The highest field of view is what we're always going to run. Vehicle field of view is at default. Vehicle looks further, so we're going to want to do that. The further the vehicle is away, the more you see. First person camera movement, we have that at least. Default's 100%. The lower that you make this percentage, the less your screen's going to move when everything's going crazy. Definitely keep that on least. It should be on least for everything. Again, I don't really play third person, so I hadn't really messed with this. Default spectator camera, game perspective instead of helmet perspective. That way when you die and you're spectating your friends, it's not on the helmet cam, it's just default how we like it. Don't have to fool with it. Keeps the game looking pretty. Listen, gang, those are my settings. Please go in the comments down below if you made it this far in the video and let me know what you think. I hope this helps your FPS problems if you're having them. Hope it improves your gameplay. Maybe you're seeing more. Maybe you didn't have an FPS problem. You just wanted a better visual, and this provided that for you. Let me know, gang, and I'll catch y'all tomorrow for another banger. Let's get it.